Okay, well, thanks for the honor of the first presentation. I'm Po from the School of Maths and Physics at the University of Queensland. And together with my colleagues, Sam and Wenbo, we're very pleased to be here today to share with you about fostering belonging in our first year maths courses at UQ post-COVID. So, thinking back about 2020, the rapid shutdown of campuses across Australia and across the world was a very distressing time for our undergraduates, but particularly for our first year undergraduates who had to also navigate the difficult transition from high school to university. So quite a lot of papers written on the impact of COVID-19 on the mental health of undergraduates. So I just show you a few. And more written on the first year undergraduate experience during that difficult time. So many of them reported sense of isolation, anxiety, and a lack of belonging with their institution. So I'm going to show you some of the reflections of our own students. This was back in 2020. And so we had about 1,000 or so of these reflections because that was how large our course was. This is Math 1051, which is the first course, uni level maths course for our students at UQ. So I just show you a sample so you can, I've highlighted words which show some of the more common feedback that we got from our students. And so as you can see, they found it very difficult, emotionally grinding were the words: no friends, no cinema, no tennis, nothing, lack of social interaction, no contact, no tight-knit connections, no tutors to support, doesn't feel like university is actually going on. So it's no wonder they felt disconnected from the university. It's no wonder they did not feel a sense of belonging with the university. So, so maybe now is a good time to give a working definition of belonging. Seems like a nebulous concept, so nice to have a definition. So I'll just show you a definition from a paper by Goodenow. Sense of belonging refers to a student's sense of being accepted, valued, I can't see that word there, included and encouraged by others, particularly teachers and peers in the classroom, and feeling that oneself is an integral part of the life and activity of the class. So this is the definition from Goodenow back in 1993. So it's certainly not a new concept. Thing is, why is belonging important? Is it just a touchy-feely concept? And Walton tells us that belonging is really important because a sense of belonging affects motivation, it affects persistence, and consequently performance. And that is why we care about belonging. And so this is a really interesting paper because these guys here did several small experiments, psychological, experiments on psychology, and they concluded that even very small cues of social connectedness, even with insignificant others, meaning people that we might only have met for 5 minutes, can cause large shifts in achievement and motivation. And then, and so the title of the article is very apt. It's mere belonging. And then further down, we have Pasquarella and Terenzini, who wrote 2 large volumes on the impact of college on students. And they pointed out in their books that the impact of college is very largely determined by interactions with faculty and peers. So I guess $1 million question is, how then can we foster belonging in our courses? So next slide. Dingle, this paper here is an interesting one. It was a very recent paper, and it is written by a UQ psychology academic who did a study on loneliness, belonging, and mental health in Australian universities. In Australian university students, and guess where the Australian university students are from? She did this big study on UQ students. And in her paper, she said that belonging is a three-way partnership, a partnership between students, university administration, and staff. And of course, students have to be proactive in reaching out for support and help, in engaging with classes, engaging with their peers, socializing, making friends, engaging with faculty. But staff and uni administration can do a lot to make the university environment welcoming and friendly to our students, so that it makes it easier for them to reach out to us as staff and to each other as and to their peers. So Sam and Wenbo will talk about later on, we'll talk about how they in their own courses help to foster belonging. And I will just finish off my little bit by talking about the important role of the university administration. The uni admin has a very important role in implementing and developing initiatives, institution-wide initiatives, which foster connections within the university. And I'll just give you one example from our own institution. Back in 2018, UQ rolled out the UQ2U program. The aim was to redevelop UQ courses to increase flexibility, and more importantly, to deliver greater and more engaging more engaging on-campus learning experiences. So what did this mean for our first year courses? In particular, 1051, which was the first course to be redesigned. It meant that it gave us a golden opportunity to address the issues of low engagement in this particular course. So this is our largest first year maths course. And this thing here, traditional tutorials, was just very poorly attended. We would only get about 30 to 40% of our students attending the tutorial. So when UQ2U came along, we addressed the issue of low engagement in these tutorials by implementing or replacing the traditional tutorials with collaborative workshops. So instead of the 150-minute face-to-face tutor-centered tutorial, we've now replaced it with collaborative workshops, which was highly successful, as reported by students and tutors and as evidenced by course ratings. And then, of course, COVID-19 came along and threw our collaborative workshops into disarray. Online workshops didn't quite do the same job. But in 2021, when we were allowed to return to campus, we took this redesign a little further. And what we did was we integrated MATLAB within the 2-hour collaborative workshops. And so the tutorial and the MATLAB are now collaborative and all done within that 2 hours. What was the upshot of this? Well, highly engaged students who tell us that they really love the workshops, and tutors telling us that they really enjoy the vibrant environment during these collaborative workshops. So I guess I'll let you have a look at the student feedback. And once again, we got lots of feedback. They've been overwhelmingly positive. And I've highlighted some keywords there, and I hope you can see what I'm trying to get across. They like the collaborative workshops because it gave them a chance to make friends. Friends are very important in their learning. Tutors reporting a positive, high energy environment where students talked, interacted, shared, debated. They formed rewarding friendships, very engaging, love collaborating. And because it was engaging, there was an incentive to come and keep coming. So we had very, very good attendance rates throughout the semester. And I would say the attendance increased twofold. So we went from 30 to 40% tutorial attendance rate pre-UQ2U to 70 to 80% attendance rate once we implemented the collaborative workshops. So now's a good time. I think I've finished my 8 minutes. I'd just like to finish off with a key finding from Dingle's paper. And Dingle says, most students do not enroll in university just to learn, they enroll to learn together. And so this is a good place to leave my part of the talk, because Sam and Wenbo will tell you how they help their students learn together in their respective courses. Thanks. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks very much, Po. Sorry, guys, just bear with me. I'll just share this screen. I can't do that.
Yeah, I just need to stop share.
Yep.
And you can have.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so thanks very much, everyone. I'm just here to talk about my particular course, Fostering Belonging in Multivariable Calculus and Ordinary Differential Equations. So I just want to give you a really quick introduction to the course. I don't want to talk too much about it. This isn't explaining multivariable calculus and ODEs, but kind of unusual for other universities. We combine these two topics into one course. It's a bit of a historical thing. And so what that means is that most people have taken Po's course, Math 1051, Single Variable Calculus and Linear Algebra. They don't have to, but we can, most of them have. And I think Math 1052, or really every multivariable calculus course is quite sort of visual. I think students can really benefit from thinking about the maths in a kind of everyday sense. You know, you've got a function of two variables. What's a function of two variables? It's nice to have a visual idea in your head that it's a mountainous terrain. What's a partial derivative? You know, what is the arc length? I think there's a lot of ideas that we can sort of take from our everyday experiences to try to make some dense maths feel quite a lot more kind of familiar. And I think that the reason why I'm saying this is it really helps to be able to do that if you have a kind of a conversational style and a kind of a rapport with your students that makes them think, yeah, we could go on a picnic together and we could decide where would we spread out our picnic mat, you know, so that we don't spill the ginger beer. Well, we'd spread it out at a local maximum, wouldn't we? So I don't know, these kinds of ideas, I think can help not just foster a sense of belonging, but also get an intuition for the course and what's going on. All right, so I've taught it quite a few times. I taught it in semester 1-2 in 2021 and semester 1 2022. And so I guess what I experienced there, and the 2021 was of course the second year of the pandemic. And we were sort of disrupted, obviously quite significantly. Queensland less so than other states, I know. You do have my sympathies if you're in Melbourne. But Queensland still did experience quite a bit of disruption in that sense. So many students, of course, couldn't come to Queensland, couldn't come to Australia. So we ran everything in hybrid mode. So lectures taught in person in the same session is also taught over Zoom. I guess very similar to what we're doing right now. And of course, some tutorials were conducted in person, some over Zoom. And I thought this was the best approach given the situation that we were dealing with. But of course, COVID had other plans, and quite a few times COVID sort of slipped into Queensland, and we went into a full lockdown mode where this hybrid arrangement wasn't possible. And so instead, we just had to suspend all on-campus interactions and just teach entirely over Zoom. So I was just at my dining room table discussing multivariable calculus and ODEs. I wonder if that's a similar experience for many other people here. All right. Anyway, so these lockdowns were rather short, usually like a week or two. But every time we returned to the hybrid mode setting, I was looking at the people in the class, the actual students who were returning to the class physically, and everything seemed different. And by different I mean worse. So first of all, fewer people did in fact return every time we came back from a lockdown, and the energy in the room just seemed lower, and the energy over Zoom seemed lower as well. Just people would really over Zoom would really not be wanting to volunteer any questions or respond to any questions I put to the students. Yeah, just the overall level of enthusiasm seemed to be worse due to this. And as I say, I don't think that I'm telling you guys anything that you don't know. I think this is probably quite a universal experience for many of us teaching during those pandemic years. Would that be a fair assumption on my part? Yeah. Okay. All right, so I looked at the semester 1 2021 evaluations of the course and of the lecturer. And I did see some really strange things. I basically got the very best ever evaluation from the internal people and the very worst ever from the external people. And the kind of qualitative comments that I like to see, that I like to look at, we're just the polar opposites of each other. You know, Sam's really enthusiastic. He really wants to, really happy to teach us, versus Sam does not want to be here. He is a very boring lecturer who doesn't want to engage in any way beyond what he's immediately paid for. And I thought, how can this be? I mean, it's literally the exact same session. The only difference is the experience people are getting, whether they watch me over a screen or turn up. So basically, it was clear that something about the digital learning experience wasn't working, even though we were trying to run things in parallel as much. And so what was I trying to do? I was trying to get a little bit more enthusiasm and in line with the topic of this talk, a bit more of a sense of belonging. And I wanted everyone to feel part of the course. I didn't want some people to get a good experience and some people just due to the chance of not being able to get into the country to get a terrible one. So I guess here are just a few things I tried to do, and I thought I'd just share with you what we got done. So I would try to start the lecture itself and also the Zoom session about 10 minutes before the content. And I kind of walk around the room asking for individual questions and just sort of chatting to people, just asking how they're going individually, what kinds of questions are they stuck on, what kinds of questions would they like to ask me. There's a variety of different resources in the course, of course, quizzes, tutorial questions, past exams. And I just say, hey, have you tried question 3 of this sheet? How did you find it? That sort of thing. So the personal touch, I think, did work well in a few ways. With few people in the room, I could learn students' names. And of course, it's really easy to learn a student's name on Zoom because it's right there. And I did try to make things quite a lot more interactive. And so often I'd sort of deliberately say, suppose I'm stuck here. So suppose I don't know where to go, or am I allowed to make this move? Is this something that's okay? And people would say, no, you couldn't do that because you'd run the risk of dividing by 0. And then I'd get people to draw things for me. I'm sort of in real life actually not a very good drawer. So I thought I'd say, look, you know, here we describe this contour. The contour is an ellipse with these different kinds of parameters. Can someone draw it for me? And it was almost always a much better drawer than me in the room. I think it just felt like it was a bit more of a friendly kind of classroom. Students didn't like to talk, even when they're actually asking questions, but they're very chatty over text. So I thought that was good, and I thought I'd just try to encourage that as much as possible. I'd also just sort of, there's inevitably a delay with a Zoom student answering questions. It's just harder to type. And so I try to say, all right, for this next question, it's just for the Zoom people. So can the Zoom people help me out with this next step? And I think those kinds of things are just not particularly groundbreaking, but just friendly kind of interventions, I think did seem to improve the friendliness of the lecture. It did slow things down quite a bit, and so I'd often leave examples. We have a whole bunch of examples in our workbooks. I'd leave some of them for students to do, and then I just post the solution later. And so then that also got people to be a little bit more hands-on. The assignments were also a little bit harder. I think that also can encourage collaboration from student to student. We ran a lot of extra classes, and although not all of them were themselves well attended, I think that everybody thought that there was a chance for them to interact in some extra way additional to the lectures and the tutorials once a week, and recorded, of course, because students do find it important to record these extra sessions. There was also a discussion board, and students were very lively on that. And it was really great to encourage students to actually answer each other's questions and to get, once again, more of a sense of belonging. And of course, I couldn't have done any of this without the help of our amazing tutors at UQ. All right, so there was, I think the feedback was pretty good. Basically, students did say that they felt an additional sense of belonging. So the SLT that they refer to in this comment is support learning tutorial. They liked us to listen to Zoom messages or read Zoom messages and encourage input. And the internal people, I think, were also fairly happy with it. I think the feedback that I got was people felt like they were part of the course, and they enjoyed the experience as much as was possible given COVID. All right, thanks very much. I might just hand my time over to Wenbo, who can talk about his experience.
Thanks, Sam. I'll share my screen. Let me put it into full screen mode, see if it works. Yes, it seems to be working. Okay, thanks, Sam and Po. So my bit is on fostering belonging through group consultation hours. So just a flow on from what Sam did in his course. So just a quick, I guess, quick mentioning of lecture consultations at UQ. Traditionally, all lecturers, we all have consultation hours, usually conducted in the instructor's office. And quite often, we post those consultation hours on our learning management site, and only a handful of students drop in during those consultation hours to actually ask questions. And sometimes what we found is that during the time of, during the week when the assessments are due, our office are packed with students, but we can only accommodate a couple of students attending at the same time due to the limitation of the space we got in our room. So since 2017, within the math department at UQ, we've started to adopt the something called the group consultation to boost student engagement and use our office hours as a platform to build study groups. And what do I mean by group consultation, and how does it differ from what we've done before, which is just having our office hour in our office? Well, I'll walk through that with you in the next few slides. So first, when were the sessions scheduled? So I have to say, for myself, I'm still new to the math department at UQ. I started lecturing since last year, so since 2021, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So when I schedule my consultation hours, I've decided to schedule them right after the lectures. Of course, I took a few experiments. I scheduled them at different times, and I found the consultation hours right after the lectures were most well attended. So high attendance number were observed at those sessions compared to the sessions scheduled at other times. So I get more students to ask questions. And by scheduling those sessions straight after the lecture, that means I can, just like Sam was saying, that I can ask them where you want to go for a picnic. And I can walk with them from the lecture room to the group consultation room. So we do, I do find myself not getting to know my students better because I get to walk with them. And also for the Zoom students, they can stay in the same Zoom room and they don't have to change to another Zoom meeting and log on and log off, so they can stay there while my internal students and I walk from the lecture room to the group consultation room. So where did the sessions take place? Well, for the group consultation room, I would like to have as many students to come along as possible. So we've booked for the group consultation, we've usually booked collaborative teaching rooms for the semester, and this is to help the students to sit with each other, and we can have more students in rooms to discuss math problems together rather than on a one-on-one basis with just a lecturer. And of course, Zoom was used for external students because we still have a pretty big cohort of students stuck overseas or wanting to do the studies externally. But for the internal and external students, we've done the group consultations in parallel. So that means both, although they are enrolled in different modes, but they get to discuss the math problems together with their internal or external peers in real time. So this is not separating the experience from the internal and external students, because with a traditional office hour, if we sit in our office, what we found is that we can only accommodate the online students or the internal student at once, not together. So the parallel setup really allowed us to help students and instructors to work collaboratively to discuss problems. And so everyone, both internal and external students, can contribute evenly in the problem-solving process. So what was discussed in the office hour, right? So each week, to boost the attendance at those group consultations, what we thought is that it will be better to actually give the students a theme, so they know what questions they may want to think about or what topics they may need to think about before they come into group consultation hours. Because it's well and good if we advertise that the lecturer will be in that room during that time, but if the students don't know what your office hour is about, what we found is that the students don't usually go to it. So we gave the students a purpose or theme for them to think about, all the top topics for them to think about, so they know what the office hour will be about for a particular week. And what we also do is we do encourage students to submit questions beforehand if they want to, because some students are shy and they don't want to ask questions in front of other students, but they do really appreciate us discussing the questions that they raise. So they have the opportunity to email us the questions or use discussion board to raise the questions. Of course, for those students who are keen to raise the questions on the day, they're more than welcome to do that as well. And this has really maximized the participation of all students. And we've seen that, we've seen an exploding number of questions being raised during office hours, rather than just from the keen students who's present in the room. So often with those Q&A sessions, so we call those group consultation Q&A sessions, and the instructors don't lead the discussion, it's the students. The students who are leading the discussion. So the students work collectively through the questions selected by the peers or raised by the peers. And what the instructors do is to provide guidance on formatting and transcriptional duties using document cameras, so that both internal and external students can see what's being discussed. But we only doing that to facilitate the discussion, but not leading the discussion. So that's one thing I found with group consultations that's different from one-on-one consultations, because with one-on-one consultations, it's usually the instructor is leading the discussion, like, okay, here's a problem, here's how to solve it. But with group consultations, the students are the ones leading the discussion. They are able to bounce ideas off each other and share their thoughts together. And often what we found is that we don't always follow the list of questions raised by the student, get sent through by email. Often students do ask follow-up questions from other students' ideas, and then we diverge to discuss on that, which I think is a brilliant thing to do, because those follow-up questions are often more in-depth on the topics that we are working on, and they do require some really good thought, even for me as an instructor, to think about, okay, how do we actually solve those follow-up questions raised by students, because they do ask some stuff that's really tricky, that's some quite often beyond what the course has taught them. Students don't have any questions from themselves to keep the Q&A session, the group consultation hour going. But what I found is that I rarely go through the list of questions that I prepare, the backup questions that I prepare to keep the conversation going. The students are always very active in raising follow-up questions or just pulling questions out from their workbook or tutorial sheets to ask during those group consultation hours, which is a brilliant thing to have. And something that I found is that because I have the space and the time there where they have a group of students already discussing the questions with me during the group consultation hour, when the hour finishes, of course, I'll leave the room because I may have another class happening, but those students tend to stay in that room and continue the problem that we didn't quite finish off during the group consultation. They'll work together collaboratively. So just by having that place and having those people in the same room, they'll continue the discussion even without the instructor being there. So that's what I found quite useful with those group consultation hours. And the students definitely found it helpful to connect with peers who are willing to solve problems together, because it's quite hard to do in a lecture theatre. So building the first year math learning community through group help sessions. So the switch from one-on-one consultation to group sessions allowed us to talk and allow more students to talk together and to raise questions together and work through problems collaboratively in the same space and time. That's for both internal and external students. So the experience here is that the internal students are able to connect with the external students and vice versa, not just connecting with their relative enrollment students within their relative enrollment modes. It helps the students to connect with other students in the course. And it was somewhat tricky to do at the beginning of the pandemic because everyone was on Zoom and everyone was tune in for a Zoom lecture where I'm just writing on my iPad and I was just interacting with people on the Zoom chat, and it is very tricky to do. But with the group consultation hours, they're actually asking questions and helping each other to answer each other's questions. So that's somewhat easier for them to connect with other peers. And the environment is definitely supportive. It's not non-judgmental because so for group consultation hours, people chose to be there because it's optional. And so our question raised are welcomed, and it's non-judgmental and a supportive environment for everyone. And I have to say, it's also a really good opportunity for me to connect with my students because in a lecture theatre of 200 students, it's very hard for me to know what each student needs. But in the group consultation, during the group consultation hour, I was able to listen to what the students are discussing, and I am also able to facilitate or correct some of the misconceptions that the students had easier, because through their discussion of the problems or through their problem solving process, I can identify those misconceptions easily, rather than during the lecture where we have 200 students and no one would like to raise their hand if they got anything that they want me to clarify on. And something I found really interesting is that I've coordinated Math 1051, which is the same course taught last semester, but during summer semester, I taught that course. And the study group that formed during that semester, and through the group consultation hour actually continued beyond the semester. So when they study the course at Kault, which is Math 1052, in the following semester, it turns out that the same study group remained. And when I went into our first year learning center, I can see that the group of students who attended my group consultation hour is now working collaboratively, and they now form their own group and in the first learning center to continue that collaborative learning and to continue with the group learning there. And they even made their own social media group chat for that little group and to continue with the math learning. So that's why I found that's really helpful, because it seems that all we have to do is to build the platform, and the students are able to take the collaborative learning from there and to find their little group from there. Yes?
So it's about time to wrap this talk up. 1 minute and maybe...
Yeah. Okay, I'll just quickly wrap it up. So here are just some attendance stats for those who are interested in the group consultation attendance. As you can see here, during the week of assessments, the attendance is quite high, and as usual, as expected. And then the attendance start to drop in the middle of the semester. That's because we had a mid-semester break right between week 7 and 8, and people tend to not come back after that until the the assessment. Until their assessment 3 and 4 are due later on in the semester. Some quick stats on the grades of the students who attended the Q&A and help sessions or group consultation hours during the semester. This is fresh data from Math 1040 in semester 1 2022. What I have here is I only counted the students who attended at least 3 group consultation hours during the semester. And what we see here, although this is a cohort distribution and this is the distribution of students who attended group consultation hours, this is what the data suggests. I'm not saying that the people who attended the Q&A and help sessions or group consultation hours are more likely to get a 7, because those who attend the session may as well be the ones who study well in the course anyway. But here's just a graph for those who are interested in. But there could be a lot of explanations why there are more 7s here than 7s in the cohort. But just something to highlight. And also, I would like to end with the student perception on the group consultation hour, just showing this slide here. But and overwhelmingly, the experience from the students are positive. So they really like the group consultation hour to address the as a platform to address the tricky assignment questions or just past exam questions or anything they need help with. So they really enjoy the sessions in general, and the experience from what I see from students is that they really enjoy learning collaboratively with the students because they can find the group of students that are willing to study together with them. So that is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I think